I often hear James say the Fed is boxed in. What is the repercussion of high US to debt GDP? Will it be the new norm? Technically, it could stay like this or continue to spiral. Now, this is a double barrel question. We also have another question from 10. Government keeps spending money they don't have. The IRA, which is the Inflation Reduction Act, the SLF, which is the Student Loan Forgiveness Program, boosting demand-side inflation while the Fed is trying to counter with raising rates. The result is a strain on the debt-based economy, which incentivizes the government to spend more. Is this a death spiral? Well, everybody is kind of very, very concerned and very tuned in. And the type of people that are now interested in this never cared about it before in their entire lives, but now it's top of mind. So first of all, let's look at the Student Debt Forgiveness Act. And again, another warning, third warning of the day. I know people that have student debt, they need that $20,000, but I just want to focus on the numbers here for a second. I have no position on the issue whatsoever, but the I always say, forget the Inflation Reduction Plan, or the Inflation Extenuation Act. But the public needs to know this. The nonpartisan committee for a responsible federal budget estimates that the student debt forgiveness plan will boost inflation by 15 to 27 basis points over the next year, as it will lead to an increase in consumption and put upward pressure on tuition costs. That's just numbers. Now, the other thing as well, this is what bothers some people, and the Student Loan Forgiveness Act could result in a $2,500 burden per taxpayer, as research finds. Sorry for the little gap there. This wasn't working. Hope it is now. So everybody has to kick in. You can't just forgive debt and it goes away. Everybody has to hold the bag, as they say. Now, this is fourth political issue of the day. A colleague sent this to me. Make sure your degree has enough value before committing to 4 years in college. If your college degree doesn't produce enough value for you to pay it off, it certainly doesn't have enough value for your neighbor to pay it off. Again, I don't want to offend anybody here, but I do know people that are sending their kids to college. They're doing things like Japanese studies. They're spending 4 years at a place like USF, $45,000 a year plus board, etc., etc. It's a lot of money. We're talking way north of $250,000 and 4 years of life gone. And they'll come out of that course not speaking a lick of Japanese and probably end up working, I don't know, some other job. What I recommend is do an EV like you're investing in a stock. Calculate the opportunity cost of those 4 years, the $250,000, and what else you could do with that. Start your own business. I know people, I know electricians and plumbers and contractors that make millions more than vice presidents at Fortune 100 companies. So think about that, everybody. Do what you like, make sure you enjoy it, but don't necessarily spend a fortune, $250,000 plus, and lose 4 years of life at college. Now let's get back to the debt spiral question for a second. And this is courtesy of the Wall Street Journal and James Lavish, who brought it to my attention. The debt spiral. Very quickly, what this graphic entails is debt is rising per acts like the IRA and the Student Loan Forgiveness Act and all the other spending that they have. The cost of debt is rising. They're jacking the rates right now. Spending increases. Debt rises again. Taxes increase. GDP falls. And there's more spending because GDP is falling. And the debt rises and repeat. Again, we are way, way beyond that 77% tipping point. We're now at 130%, and that's a problem. But let's go back to a little bit of history, which many people may not be aware of. I've spoken about it a few times, but it's hard to say. I decided to lay it out with some charts. So this is the 2-year federal funds rate, the 2-year treasury, which I believe which will equate to the topping out of the federal funds rate. It's now at about 3.4%. My bogey amount on the Fed funds rate is 3.5%. We'll go beyond that. We are going to blow things up. That's always been my thesis. We got 100 basis points more to go, and I've said that 1,000 times since April 2022. Now, the 10-year yield now exceeds the level of 2018 that markets could not handle. That big gray arrow points to that red line, which is where the markets broke in 2018 after they did a little bit of QT and the rates hit 3%. We are now at 3.4%. We're higher than that. But Remember, back then, the debt to GDP was 90%. Now it's 130%, and it's rising fast. And a shout out to Northman Trader as well, who believes the same stuff as well. So the 2-year as well is up 935% in 12 years. We've gone from a very low interest rate environment to a high one in a very short window of time. This is why I believe we could break something very, very fast. There's simply too much debt to service, and it's growing with all these programs. So I don't know. That's my take. Fed are boxed in. If they go beyond 3.5 Fed funds rate, they break stuff. That's it. This is where I think it'll balance out. Watch the 2-year, and I think Lynn Alden actually says the same thing too.